if we could address you directly right now.
Everything comes full circle.
That's number one.
I don't tell him what questions to ask me.
There are a lot of people around town that have the same question.
Brush my teeth. I'm a good wash in the morning.
I can't confirm or deny.
You know, just keep going a little bit longer here, Mike. Keep going a little bit longer.
And radio. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
Welcome to Newhouse Afternoon on ESPN 97.7 and on Twitch at QSportsTalk.com. My name is Cedric Derecho alongside Teddy Caputo and Jack Ziskin. Teddy and Jack, how are you doing today? Our last ever show.
Yeah, last show on Newhouse Afternoons. Doing good. It's warm in Syracuse finally.
Yeah, it's really sad. Me and Cedric had a good pre-show cry about it, and we're trying to keep that out of our voices right now. But we're really excited to jump right in and talk about Syracuse football and the draft.
Yeah, so Syracuse lands Gary Bryant III, the linebacker out of South Dakota State. Guys, what do you guys think about that move for Fran Brown's defense?
Well, I love anybody whose team mascot was a jackrabbit, all right? And this is the second jackrabbit we've had coming to Syracuse. Don't forget about Will Kyle, the center, who went via UCLA, but still a jackrabbit. But back to Gary Bryant, 103 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble last year. That is the type of presence that Syracuse needs at linebacker. And Teddy, I know you were excited about this. Big name quarterback, college football playoff experience.
Yeah.
And Crystal Ball says he's coming to Syracuse.
Yeah, well, really quick, Gary Bryant III fills the hole with Marlo Wax and Justin Barron now moving on to the NFL. But on to Steve Angeli, yes. Yes, Angeli. Okay. Yeah, the thing is there's a lot more film on him than there is on Ricky Collins. So with that experience in the college football playoff, he had a 73% completion percentage in his time at Notre Dame. He's not as mobile as Ricky Collins, but can move and can lower his shoulder, and he's good in the pocket. So if Syracuse does land him, we could have a quarterback competition on our hands. I know they said Ricky Collins is the starter, but why would they be looking at this guy otherwise?
Well, there is the connection with, Syracuse quarterbacks coach Nunzio Campanile. His
Former
brother,
interim head coach at Rutgers, Fran Brown, another Rutgers guy.
Well, his brother coached Angeli in high school, so that's a potentially exciting option, especially since that quarterback room doesn't have a lot of experience, including at the starting role. It'll be interesting, especially with Collins' hand injury, and unfortunately the Murad Watson transfer is also official. The defensive tackle is taking his talents to Texas. He rang up 31 tackles last year, 15 of them coming over his last 3 games, and it's a big loss for Syracuse.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the new era of NIL, anybody can go at any time, and Syracuse is going to have to fill that hole quickly. But, I mean, like you said before, Gary Bryant came. We can find another Gary Bryant for the defensive line, so the hole could be filled pretty soon.
Don't we all just need a Gary Bryant in our lives? And in other news, former Syracuse receiver Trebor Pena is visiting with Miami after visiting with Penn State. That is something to keep an eye on, especially since Syracuse will be at Hard Rock Stadium this season taking on Carson Beck. The good news is anybody who's watched Carson Beck knows he probably can't hit Trebor Pena.
Yeah.
And want to wrap this up with a couple other recruits before we get to the draft. Former 4-star lineman Marquise Easley out of Georgia and Texas wide receiver Jonte Cook are both visiting Syracuse. Easley is 6'5", 320 pounds, so a big boy for that offensive line, and Cook was a former top 40 recruit. And with Pena out, maybe Cook comes in, and maybe it's Ricky Collins, maybe it's Steve Angeli with a little Tommy DeVito magic coming this way at the Dome.
Bolstering that O-line is going to be very, very important because we've seen what Ricky Collins can do. Yeah. We know that he's more mobile than McCord. So this is going to be more of a running team this year, definitely, especially with the loss of Aronde Gadsden and a couple of the receiving core there. So I think that bolstering up that O-line is definitely a priority for Fran Brown. Do you guys see this team being very, very run-heavy next season, or you still see the
They have
the pass game being the focal point.
They have 5 receivers returning. Not many saw the field, but 5 receivers returning, and 3 of those guys looked really good in the spring game. 2 of them had 2 catches for 64 yards each, and Jalen Hornsby, 5 receptions, 112 yards. I think will be still a passing threat. But just one quick question for you guys before we move on. Do you think that Trevor Pena's comment about Ricky Collins inspired this move to possibly put more depth in the quarterback room, going out and looking at Steve Angeli? I know he's coming to look at us, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's the injury. I think it's the New Jersey connection. You know, with Fran Brown, we know he loves his guys from Jersey, and I think that Collins, with limited experience, injury risk has been a problem for him. It makes sense to have a backup, and I think if Angeli's coming here, it's because he thinks that the Syracuse offense will have the talent that even if he's not the starter right away, he can come in and take that spot if he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, Trevor Pena is not set on going to Penn State or Miami yet. So if Syracuse does make a move here, maybe he's enticed to come back because he sees more of Kyle McCord and Angeli than he does in Ricky Collins.
Yeah, but the NIL demands that he's looking for might have nixed those ties because, Fran Brown obviously saying that he's not going to pay anywhere near close to $2 million. I think it's still unclear what he was making last season.
It is unclear. And I didn't mean to cut you off there, so I apologize for that. But it is unclear. I don't see him as a $2 million receiver. I don't think anybody does. I think he's one of those guys who can play at the next level because those shifty slot receivers, we've seen it with Wes Welker, for example. They translate. But bottom line, wherever he's going, I don't really think he's getting $2 million.
Yeah, and Fran Brown said, if you're trying to make more than one of my coordinators and you're demanding that, then you got to go.
Or if you're, unless you're Travis Hunter, then he'll cut you a check.
Exactly, yeah. But anyways, guys, so there's some Syracuse players that are projected to be drafted over the weekend, starting not anybody tomorrow, but maybe day 2 or day 3. What are your thoughts? Kyle McCord's probably the first one to go on the board. Where do you think he's going to end up? Cedric, I'll start with you.
I've been seeing a lot of traction of him going to the Rams, late third, early fourth. I think that he would be a good fit as a backup to Matt Stafford and Sean McVay's offense. Obviously a pocket passing, offense. So I think that, they went with Stetson Bennett a couple of years ago. If they pick McCord here, indicating that they're going to move on from Bennett. I think that McCord does fine in that system.
All signs point to them moving on from Bennett, But McCord to the Rams makes a lot of sense to me. He's got a strong arm. He can make all the throws. We've seen this comp a couple times to Brock Purdy. And unless McVay wants a running quarterback like a Jalen Milroe and is willing to take him with his first round pick in like 3 years, I don't see a better fit than McCord to the Rams.
Yeah, me too, because Kyle McCord is a pocket passer first, like Matt Stafford. He is a little bit maybe more mobile than Matt Stafford, but he can find those guys. The deep balls are good for Kyle McCord, and he's got protection. Rams are doing better at protecting Matt Stafford in recent years. And you got Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. Those are 2 great guys to throw the ball to. The only other option I would say for Kyle McCord, if not the Rams, would possibly be the Browns. They're a team with Deshaun Watson possibly out the whole year and Kenny Pickett as your QB1. Kyle McCord could possibly go in there and compete for the job. Plus, him and Kevin Stefanski had good talks during the NFL Combine. So
I really like the idea of a Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Kyle McCord quarterback competition.
And Joe Flacco, yes.
I wasn't saying you missed anything. I think that really sums up where the Browns are as an organization right now. And the other team I could see McCord landing with is the Jets or the Giants. He said the Giants pushed him really hard during his visit with them. And he grew up a Jets fan, has some ties with the organization. His dad played at Rutgers. So there's a lot of stuff there, but if McCord goes to the Rams at 101, I have a Rondé Gadsden Jr. hitting L.A. as a 4th-round pick, number 127 overall, so that connection could survive.
Yeah, and you get a 2 tight end system there with Tyler Higbee and just another weapon for the Rams. Now, Cedric, where do you think LaQuint Allen could possibly go?
I think he's a good fit with the Minnesota Vikings, pick number 139 overall. I think that the offensive line complements his game, a strong power game. We saw that style of play the last couple seasons in Minnesota, and I think that honestly he can be very much like an Isaiah Pacheco type in Minnesota, just getting the tough yards, running through contact. I think that's the LaQuinn Allen's MO, and I think that I think his game actually translates very well to the NFL game.
Yeah, and he's shifty like the Cook brothers, which they had Dalvin Cook there on the team a few years ago.
I don't know that I really see Pacheco in his game as much as you do. I think that he has an outside shot to not only be a very good complementary back, but one of those late round steals that maybe even starts for the right team. I see a lot of DeAndre Swift.
Pacheco went 7th round.
I see a lot of DeAndre Swift. I get what you're saying. I just think he's a little bit. I just think he's a little bit of a different back, in certain respects.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I just said DeAndre Swift. These aren't insulting comps from either of us, by the way. I don't really think there's any need to argue over it.
I see a lot of Dalvin Cook in LaQuinn Allen personally.
That's a big ask.
Maybe that's the wrong comp, but I just do, especially if we're talking the Vikings. But the only other player it seems that is projected to go in this draft is Fadil Diggs, although there are about 4 other players that are on the board for Syracuse. Where do we think he's going to go, fellas?
I got Diggs to the Chargers, and they need pass rushers. He's a developmental option. Day 3, I got him at 158. That's the 5th round. And with his speed and his athleticism, I think he could really refine his technique playing under, Harbaugh in LA. And don't sleep on Jackson Meeks or Elijah Clark as a UDFA. I think they're both really good UDFA options. But I think that their testing probably wasn't where some NFL teams want it to be. But if you can play football, you can play football. We know Jackson Meeks is a really good route runner, a really good special teamer. And with Elijah Clark, he just hustles. He's a really solid defensive back who was asked to do a lot for a middling Syracuse defense last year. So I think there's a lot of excitement around this class. Even if it's only 4 guys and not 6, that's a good year for Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we all have been saying, throughout football season how they've exceeded expectations. These players have exceeded expectations, and I think that Fadil Diggs having, the performances he had in the combine, just putting up super impressive numbers on pro days. I think that he's definitely made some noise. He might have even been somebody who might have been a UDFA before his performances in the combine. So I think he'd do well under Harbaugh. I think it's low risk, high ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And they need someone to replace Joey Bosa, who they lost on the defensive line. So I think that's a good pick that late into the draft. Those other 2 guys you mentioned, and Fadil Diggs, if they don't go anywhere, I'll happily take them at the Arizona Cardinals. I think each of those guys fills a need that the Cardinals have.
But since we're in central New York, coming up right after the break, we're going to dive into what Buffalo and the Jets and the Giants are going to do.
Yep.
Absolutely. Full NFL draft preview coming up. You're listening to Newhouse Afternoon on ESPN 97.7. Watch us on Twitch at QSportsTalk.com.
I'm going to go blow my nose real quick, honestly.
Yeah. Guys, we got 17 people watching. So for those 17 people on Twitch, what are your guys' thoughts about Syracuse players in the draft? I think the guys that are supposed to be UDFAs, undrafted free agents, Jackson Meeks, Justin Barron, Marlo Wax, Elijah Clark. Those are the names I'm hearing.
Which honestly, before the season started, you would have thought that Marlo Wax had more of an NFL chance than Fadil Diggs for sure.
Oh,
but then you just saw that Fadil Diggs, the second fastest at his position in the combine. It's
Yeah, and even though Marlo Wax his senior year was a little depleted with was depleted with the injury, you never know. He was a baller. He was gonna go into this year with high expectations. So he could be a steal in this draft too. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure how he didn't go to the combine, right? Marlo Wax?
No.
Yeah, so if he went to the combine, maybe his stock would have increased. I'm just saying I think he could be a steal for any team that signs him in free agency if he's not drafted. So
it's more just about the fact he's kind of a...
So, guys, quick question here we got from one of the fans. I'm not sure if this is from the last show or from our show, but It's a question that we could answer right now. It says, is LeQuint a starter or more is LeQuint a starter or more a third down back? Like, what's his ceiling? And this is from a user named Brett Hatchett.
I think at worst case scenario he can be a third down back, but you got to look at his age and his measurables. I think his measurables are solid, especially given his age. And he does a lot of the little things right. The only reason that he might not be a starting caliber back, I don't think it's an agility issue. I think there's a reason Mel Kiper Jr. loves him, but it's how many carries can he take at the NFL level? How many hits can he take? And that's what could limit him to being a really good complementary back. Like, I will be surprised if he doesn't have a positive impact wherever he goes in the draft. I'd be surprised if he just kind of fades away in the back of running back room. He's just too talented for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Who could he? The Vikings, I think, would be a team he could. He wouldn't see the field.
He would see the field because it's Mason and it's Jones. It's not the strongest. It's not a weak running back room. Far from it, but it's not like they're not world beaters.
Should be able to okay there.
And then we're gonna dive into this when we're back. It's a lot of people don't like this draft class. I actually think there's a lot of really good football players in it.
A lot of good football players. I just think obviously in, the last 10 years, it seems like it's always about, the first focus is quarterbacks. Who are the main quarterbacks in this draft class and all that? And this draft seems to be one of the weakest in the last 10 years, if not the weakest. So that's maybe what is being a measurable of, this is not a good draft because the quarterbacks are not as good. But to your point, that's not necessarily true.
Well, I think the two things we're going to have to get into is there's a perceived lack of star power, but there's also a perceived high number of starters in this draft class. And it would be even stronger if not for NIL. They actually say NIL weakened day 3, but there's a lot of good edge rushers in this draft, and there's a lot of good offensive linemen.
Yeah, and Brett came back with another comment. McCord is better than Sanders. You heard it here first.
I don't have a problem with him saying that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Shedeur coming up. So No, you don't want to talk about Shedeur? Well, it's going to have to happen. We're doing a little bit of
Teddy Bridgewater.
What's that?
We'll definitely debate where he goes.
In town.
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
Welcome back to Newhouse Afternoon on ESPN 97.7 and on QSportsTalk.com. This hour of Newhouse Afternoon is powered by Drivers Village Cicero. Go to dvoffers.com for more info. Guys, tomorrow night, NFL Draft, one of the weaker classes we've seen, but there still should be plenty of excitement, plenty of buzz, plenty of storylines. What do you guys think of the number 1 overall pick? Do you see Tennessee making a trade at all?
Tennessee is, by all accounts, ESPN's own Adam Schefter has reported this. They're not moving out of 1. It was always considered a long shot. And on behalf of the 2025 draft class, of which I have no personal investment in, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you? You're calling this a weak draft class because it's not an elite quarterback class. And look, everybody's been talking about Shedeur Sanders this, Shedeur Sanders that. I don't necessarily think he's a bad quarterback. I don't necessarily think he's a world beater. I think there's a very real possibility he's Teddy Bridgewater. But this is not the Shedeur Sanders show. This draft is about meat and potatoes. This is about getting starters. It's about getting bigger on your offensive and defensive line. That's how championships are won. There are 4 edge rushers in this draft class, at least, with not only Pro Bowl potential, but potentially all-pro potential.
Right away? You're saying right away?
Not right away. It's never right away. But there's a lot of good defensive linemen in this draft class. There's a lot of good offensive linemen, too. We've heard a lot about the tackles. It's like, Will Campbell's arms are 1/8 of an inch shorter. Ugh. Yeah, that doesn't matter. That never matters. So I would be really excited by this class.
Yeah.
If you're looking to win football games the right way.
So how do you think Cam Ward fits in Tennessee's offense?
Well, look, Cam Ward, he's a big fan of Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley. He thinks they're world beaters. He said so on his Twitch stream. And if you ever, it's nice to know he uses the same platform we do, but I digress.
Yeah.
The offense is going to be him.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, other than those guys, I don't really know what other weapons that Tennessee has, if they have any other weapons. So they got to strike with some weapons in this draft, in addition to Cam Ward. I don't know what their draft assets look like exactly, but maybe they should trade up higher and get like after the first pick, of course. Maybe trade up higher, get a good receiver, or you strike in free agency with some of the receivers that may be there. But yeah, I mean, there isn't a lot. I'm glad Cam Ward's excited, but there aren't a lot of people there to be excited about specifically.
No, I think the more interesting pick here is number 2. What does Cleveland do at number 2? There's been a lot of momentum about Travis Hunter coming in now at number 2 over Abdul Carter, much to the chagrin of Giants fans. For a little while, we weren't sure if the Browns are going to go quarterback. It seems by all intentions that they're not, at least in the first round. So I think that, Travis Hunter, I think he's probably the guy at number 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland makes a switch up last second, because Abdul Carter, I think, has the opportunity to be a generational talent.
Yeah, let me chime in here. I personally like Travis Hunter, generational talent.
Well, they both are, but I think,
both are. But to me, it makes way more sense for the Browns to get Abdul Carter and pair him up with Myles Garrett. You just re-signed Myles Garrett. Why not have a two-headed dragon on the defensive line and make quarterbacks' lives a nightmare?
It's time for the Cleveland Browns to accept the fact that, and we've all known this for a very long time, they are never destined to have a franchise quarterback. Now, true, they had Baker Mayfield, and they could have kept Baker Mayfield and they'd be fine, and then I wouldn't be saying this. But obviously they didn't do that. So this is my take here.
And then he went 98 yards on 2 days' notice.
If you can't have a quarterback, nobody else can have a quarterback. Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett will be quarterback killers.
Yeah.
I think that's the way I would go. But I know for the purposes of our mock draft, we got Cam Ward 1, and I think we all agree that Travis Hunter will go 2, even if we don't think he should.
I think Cleveland Browns should put that on a shirt once they draft him.
I mean, Travis Hunter fits anywhere, right? But then I think that in particular he'd be a very good fit with the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Pairing him up with Malik Neighbors, and then if the Giants, rely on their veteran quarterbacks and Winston and Wilson this year, try to maybe trade up for an Arch Manning potentially next year. They might be there draft positioning wise anyways. I mean, maybe, and this is coming from an Eagles fan. I see what the Giants are seemingly trying to do with an upcoming dynasty of young talent coming forward.
Yeah, I just think Travis Hunter would have the best chance to utilize his unicorn ability on both sides of the ball.
I like that word, unicorn ability.
Yeah, I mean, that's what some of the mock drafts are calling him, is a unicorn. I think he could play both sides of the ball as a New York Giant because they have both needs at cornerback and wide receiver.
I agree. I think look, I'm assuming we're all agreeing that we think Hunter is going to go 2 because their GM has compared him to Shohei Ohtani.
The Browns.
Yeah, very.
If that's how he's talking about him, yeah.
But
I don't think that's the smartest decision. Not because Travis Hunter isn't amazing, but because why not get a two-headed dragon and be a quarterback killer, right?
Well, personally, I think that both Hunter and Sanders will land in Cleveland. But if we're just talking about the top 10 here, Hunter is going to be in a good situation in Cleveland because they have Denzel Ward. And they don't necessarily have a number 1 target, but they do have Jerry Jeudy. They do have Njoku. They have weapons. What they need is an offensive tackle, specifically to bookend that left side of the line. And that's going to be the question. And speaking of left tackles, we're going to talk about the man of the hour, the man that nobody can stop talking about his arm length, Will Campbell, because I think we all agree on this. He's going forward to New England.
Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him.
Yeah, especially to protect Drake May, the young talent there.
Mike Vrabel is going to take 3 linemen with his first 3 picks. And he might use his 4th pick in the top 3 rounds on a lineman too. And that's the right way to build a football team, even if it's not exciting for fans. And speaking of not super exciting, but definitely effective, we're going to go to the other side of the line. Cedric, I know who you got picking. I know who you got Jacksonville taking.
Well, no, Jacksonville, I actually think that they go receiver here. You know, Teddy, you're a Cardinals guy. And you know what? Titairoa McMillan, the standout out of Arizona, 1,319 receiving yards last year, 8 touchdowns, 84 receptions. I think that, you know, I've seen some mock drafts going in the direction of Ashton Genty. I don't think that Genty goes 5 to Jacksonville. I think that McMillan is a much better fit for the Jags. You know, at 5, I think that Genty under Pete Carroll's run-heavy offense, I think he can absolutely excel. If Genty goes 6, ladies and gentlemen, in your fantasy drafts, if you're playing fantasy football, you make sure you pick Ashton Genty late first round, early second round, because as a rookie, he will have a breakout season.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really bold take, Cedric. I just want to mention that McMillan is in the 50s on some teams' draft boards. There are teams that have him below Iowa State's Jaden Higgins. I think he's a first-round pick. I think saying that he's going to go number 5 overall is pretty much entirely against what the consensus says. It's a hot take at best. And personally,
CBS had him
I would say that
killing it.
Mason Graham will be the pick at 5 for Jacksonville, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
I think that makes sense too, and I do think that Ashton Genty does fall to 6. It seems like the Raiders are a lock to get him if he's on the board at 6. He is an amazing running back, and with the departure of Josh Jacobs, they have not found his replacement. Ashton Genty, definitely the guy.
I think he's absolutely going to light it up this season.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No matter where he lands, but especially with the Raiders.
He said, who's going to tackle me, like, basically, and which is a bold thing to say.
Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
We saw it against Penn State. It's Abdul Carter.
Yeah, no, for sure. But and I think just to move a little bit further down, Will Johnson at 9 for the Saints is a great pick. They only have one guy on the depth.
We're skipping my Jets?
Well, then talk about your Jets then.
We're going to take an offensive tackle. We're going to take Armand Membu out of Missouri. That's very exciting. Football fans love hearing about offensive linemen.
You're not going to take Tyler Warren at 7
No.
to give Justin Fields a weapon?
The Jets are not if Justin Fields isn't the franchise quarterback, I've come to terms with that. I think they're in the same boats as the Browns.
I think you got to give him a little help, though.
Yes, that's why you get him an offensive tackle. Run the ball. I want to be bigger. I want my football team to be bigger and meaner than everyone else. That's what Detroit did, and it works out okay for them.
Yeah. And so what about number 8, Cedric?
Well, you know what? I have Jalen Walker at edge here out of Georgia, the Georgia Dogs. We've seen, you know, me being an Eagles fan, we have seen the success out of the Georgia players on that squad. They just have a culture there where those players not just win in college, but their play translates to the NFL more often than not. You know, I think that Jalen Walker can be a menace off the edge. I think that he can terrorize quarterbacks. I think that he'll be a big boost to this Carolina defense, which was kind of slept on last season. You know, they had a lot of pretty solid games.
Yeah, and they definitely picked it up towards the end of the year. I mean, yeah, not a super impressive season, but, you know, like you said, some games could have swung the other way. And speaking of edge rushers for the Eagles, I'm glad that Josh Sweat is now going to rock the red this year. At number 9, like I was saying before, Will Johnson, I think that's a great pick for the New Orleans Saints because they only have one cornerback on the depth chart on the left side of the field, Kool-Aid McKinstry. So they need to add some depth there as well. Jack, what were you going to say? You had a thought.
Well, I think if Warren makes it to 9, that's where he's going. I think that's what they get Kellen Moore. I would say the same with Genty. I just don't think he reaches there. I think we're going to close out the top 10 with Shamar Stewart. Only 1.5 sacks last year in a deep rotation for Texas A&M, but his measurables are off the charts. He's got the type of athleticism that sent a player like Trayvon Walker to the top of the board. Mm-hmm. And then I think we should really pivot to the New York teams because there's going to be a lot going on day one. As we've said, we think Carter's going to the Giants. I think Membu is going to the Jets, but there are some people who got Tyler Warren, the standout tight end from Penn State, going to the Jets. But nowhere in that top 10 conversation did we get to the team closest to Syracuse, the Bills.
Yeah, well, I will just say this. Back to the wide receiver conversation with I can't even pronounce his name.
Titairoa McMillan?
Titairoa McMillan, thank you. I definitely see the Cowboys picking him to give Dak Prescott some more ammunition. But if he does fall as low as you say, Jack, according to experts, I do see the Bills taking him, actually.
I think his floor is probably around 20. I think that I said that more just to highlight how divided people are on him.
Yeah.
He's a former volleyball player, so he's got great body control, but he's not super fast.
Yeah.
So that's what's got scouts confused, I think. So I think he'll fall lower than he should. But he's definitely he's not a top 5 talent in this draft or probably any draft.
Well, I will say if the Bills are on the clock and he's on the board, why not take him?
I think they could move up for him if he starts falling. I think they could also move up for Will Johnson if he starts falling, because they really need a cornerback. They've hosted a lot of them. The most noteworthy for me is Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. He's really fast. There's Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. You think Hairston's fast? Well, Amos was a track star. So those are two corners that could maybe make up for the Kyer Elam pick that didn't go Bean's way. But I know for Buffalo fans, and make sure to chime in on the comments, Q Sports Talk on Twitch, Walter Nolan and Nick Emanwari, two physical SEC defenders, Nolan a tackle and Emanwari a safety, are the favorites for Bills fans right now.
Cedric, do you have any other thoughts on the Bills before we move on?
Well, you know what? I think we want to get to our next topic, which is the NBA and NHL playoffs. So I'm going to leave it there so that we have more time for that.
Yeah.
So after that short 4-minute break, we'll be back with just that, the NBA NHL playoffs. You're listening to Newhouse Afternoon on ESPN 97.7. Watch us on Twitch at QSportsTalk.com.
The Sports Show with
Because, look, dude, we're at 31 already.
Oh,
It's
no,
like,
no.
we're not going to start till 35.
No, you're good. You're good.
McMillan.
I was going to say we can continue the talk here.
McMillan.
But one thing McMillan?
I'm McMillan at 5? You told me you were reading mock drafts all the time. I don't care what CBS has. McMillan isn't going 5. He's not the best pass catcher in this draft. That's Tyler Warren.
Look, that's what they said about Puka Nacua. Look at him now.
I'm sorry, did Puka Nacua go 5th overall and I just missed that?
No, but he went top 20 overall, and not many people had him going top 20 overall. People were like, who's that?
Oh, my Lord.
He's one of the sleeper picks.
Well, man, but
there's a lot to dive in there because Nacua was a 5th-round pick. 177.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think
he was. The Rams, they never have first-round picks. This is, I think, the first time in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll show it to you right there. Highlight it for you.
Oh, 5th round. Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, when you said he went top 20, I'm like, I don't remember Puka Nacua going top 20.
I'm very upset by this. I think we're going to have to, you know what, I'm glad they're taking us off the air.
I'm more thinking about how he did in fantasy. He was definitely top 20 fantasy receiver.
Well,
yeah. Oh, man. But, guys, one thing we didn't get into that block was Shedeur Sanders. What are your thoughts? What is the chat's thoughts? Chat, Shedeur Sanders is a name. I know one of you guys commented McCord is better than Sanders. Where do we think Sanders is going to go? Please feel free to chime in. Q Sports Talk chat on twitch.tv.
Yeah, dude, there was no way I was going to answer that because, one, it would have taken another 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then
we got 2 minutes right now.
And then block 4, which we'll leave some suspense for the Twitch chat. We don't want to leave ourselves with 2 minutes for that again, right? So.
Yeah.
I'm still just trying to get over the McMillan take, to be honest.
Well, to answer my own question, I guess, Shedeur Sanders.
CBS is actually more accurate than the other mock drafts I've seen the last couple of years.
Absolutely not.
Yes,
that's
they are.
Yeah, and Puka Nacua went top 20.
Last year they were.
And Puka Nacua was a top 20
hey,
pick.
listen,
Yeah,
they were on the money. They were on the money last year.
No.
I think
you're
the
right.
CBS mock draft, the day of the draft, I think they got 9 of the top 10 correct.
No.
Just at least the one I looked at.
Just like you said that Puka Nacua was a top 20 pick. You were right about this too. And that brings us to Shedeur Sanders, another thing that Cedric Derecho is right about, because Cedric said before the show that he actually thinks Shedeur is the next Peyton Manning.
I did not say that.
You say,
By no means did I say that whatsoever.
Did you compare Will Levis to Peyton Manning then? It was one or the other.
No, it was definitely Will Levis. I was saying that.
I don't think that's any better.
I was saying that you were unfairly knocking him for throwing so many picks. But
I was unfairly knocking him for not using his eyes.
For not using his eyes.
Let's just be honest about it.
He actually didn't throw as many interceptions as I thought.
I don't know.
Back to Shedeur.
I don't know how much time we have, but Shedeur Sanders, where do we think he's going?
24.
I think 21 to the Steelers.
21 to the Steelers?
21 to the Steelers. I think he's a good fit over there, and I think that they need a quarterback who's mobile, and I think that he brings that to the table.
I agree. I think he's a great fit in Tomlin's system. They have weapons around him, always a solid offensive line, and I think they will teach him how to not take sacks and really toughen up.
They need a minimalist at quarterback, so I don't think that
That's why they're going to take Jackson Dart at 21.
Jackson
or
Dart,
trade down for
I don't
Tyler
think he
Shuck.
falls that far to 21. I really don't.
I can hear him now in the
Can you
headset.
actually?
Yeah, I can.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Yeah. So, all right. You said 24. Who's at 24?
Minnesota, they're going to trade down with Cleveland. Cleveland's going to get Hunter and Shador. It's a Hollywood finish in Cleveland.
Hollywood finish in Cleveland. All right, I like that.
I knew you'd like that. You also like McMillan at 5, though, so.
I'm not saying he's going to go 5. I'm saying that Trevor Lawrence wants to pair
I'm
him
doing
with
some
his
soul
main-
searching here, Cedric. I'm just doing some soul searching right now. I'm questioning
Some
things.
soul searching.
But we're going back on air, so now I can
You don't
button up again.
Anybody think the Raiders are gonna have a chance to get Shador Sanders? Like
They will. But they
Second
won't.
round?
if he falls that
Do they have
low,
2
maybe.
first-round picks?
No.
No,
Oh.
nobody has 2 first-round picks this year.
ESPN 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
Welcome back to Newhouse Afternoon on ESPN 97.7 and on QSportsTalk.com. We've got the NBA playoffs in full force. Knicks and Pistons Game 3, guys. The series tied at 1 as we go back to the Motor City. What do we think?
Yeah, I think that the Pistons are not going to go down without a fight, and I also think that Tom Thibodeau has not learned his lesson about game management, because he's got a few of his players playing 40-plus minutes, key guys like Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby. OG's been, the second game he didn't play too well. First game he played great. But you got guys like Precious Achiuwa, PJ Tucker not seeing the floor at all. I think you got to give your guys a little bit of a rest or else they're going to burn out. Maybe not this series, but definitely the next.
All right, well, I love the PJ Tucker did not play. That guy he's at the end. He's a great locker room guy. I don't think you should see the court. When it comes to Brunson's minutes, your stars are going to play over 40. But I actually agree, because Cam Payne, he was dominant. He's the reason they won Game 1.
Yeah.
And that gets rewarded with 4 minutes in Game 2.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of
Yikes.
different words that Knicks fans were thinking when that happened. That's just the reality.
Yep.
The truth of the matter is this. Tom Thibodeau is inflexible. He will not change. We have known this since before he was hired by the Knicks. And the reality is, I think by the end of the playoffs, when he is no longer with the organization, Jay Wright
I knew you were going to
will
say
leave
that.
the desk.
You're calling for
And
them to move on
Dante
from Thibodeau.
DiVincenzo will get traded back to the New York Knicks. Now
That I don't know.
At that point, I'm just in Knicks land.
If you get the Villanova Knicks,
When I say
Villanova Knicks.
DiVincenzo to New York, at that point I'm just off in Knicks land, waving my Knicks fandom in the air for everyone to see, like you with the Eagles, only with a little bit more modesty.
Hey, listen, let me just say really quick that I was one of the only ones on air calling them to win that game by more than 17 points, and they
If
did
you had
just
backed
that.
it up with facts, I'd respect it.
Huh.
But we can't
Well, you know
relitigate this. We relitigate it every 2 weeks.
Here's another prediction that's not necessarily a hot take. I don't want to be the doomer for New York, but I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit comes away with this series in 6 games. I think that with the way
6
things are
games.
going back to the Motor City, I think Detroit should be up 2-0 in this series. The Knicks needed a fourth quarter explosion, and they needed that Garden crowd to be able to will them to victory. It's not going to happen in Detroit. I really think that there's a real chance Cade Cunningham goes off again and that New York will go back to Game 5 at the Garden down 3-1.
I don't see 3-1. I see 2-2. I see them losing in.
I can see Detroit holding home. I
see them losing in 6 like you, but I see New York stealing 1 on the road, and then they lose 2 straight. That's how I see it ending.
You have them losing Game 5 at the Garden?
Yeah, I have them.
Because I have them winning Game 5 at the Garden
Tom
to stay
Thibodeau
alive.
gets booed off the court, and that will be the last time he coaches MSG. I think they're going to lose this series because they have refused to make adjustments. Leon Rose might be a great president of basketball operations, and Tom Thibodeau was a very good hire. He was what this organization needed. And all I want to say to him is thank you. It's time to go in a different direction. I think that New York needs a change, and I think that change with minimal roster with minimal roster overhaul. Moving on from Tom Thibodeau can get this roster all the way to the top of the NBA.
I will say I think Jay Wright is a very formidable candidate. He's got championship experience. He's got the Nova guys there.
That's really the only requirement.
That's the only requirement.
To be on the Knicks, you just have to have prior Villanova experience, it seems like.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Or be Cat.
But again, you got guys like, I know you said PJ Tucker shouldn't see the court, but come on. OG Anunoby, 42 minutes. Mikal Bridges doesn't want to play more than 40, and he's being pressed too. 38 minutes, it appears 29 in game 1. But still, these guys are going to get burnt out into the ground going deeper into the playoffs. So you got to get those other guys on the court. Precious Achiuwa, Tyler Kolek, and definitely, like you said, Cam Payne needs to see the floor more after a dominant game 1 performance.
Well, I agree with you guys about Cam Payne, but we already know that Thibodeau really shortens up the roster for the playoffs and plays these guys huge minutes. Hasn't led to success. He's only been to the conference finals once in his coaching career. So.
Yeah, something's got to change.
Derrick Rose blew out his knee in that game.
Right.
In that series.
And we don't want that to happen to Jalen Brunson either.
Well, elsewhere in the NBA
Wait, can we touch on the Knicks one last thing?
Well, go ahead.
I have one last Knicks take, and then we can move on. Put Mitchell Robinson back in the starting lineup. Slide Towns to the 4. Move Bridges to the 2, OG to the 3. I know that's a little big. Bring Josh Hart off the bench with Shamet and McBride and Payne and Precious. Small ball. And I'm not saying you run all 5 of those guys at once, but I want to see more minutes from those guys. I want to see them tougher in the paint against Jalen Durant.
That's not
Karl
necessarily
Anthony
a Thibodeau
Towns
style of basketball, though.
2 bigs. I mean, he did it with Randall and Robinson, and I'd argue that Cat's more of a 4 than a 5 because he's not quick laterally.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. Does anybody have the Knicks going to the second round? Are we all doomers here? Do we all have them losing to Detroit in the series?
I think they'll make it to the second round.
Okay, Teddy has them.
I don't think they're going to win the second round. If they play, I think they would be projected to play Boston. So there's no way they're getting past Boston in the second round, especially if they're being managed like this.
I'm a New York sports fan. I just expect to be disappointed, all right?
But other teams, playoff teams, Lakers, how are we feeling about them, guys?
Well, I think they looked a lot better in Game 2 than Game 1. That goes without saying. I mean, Luka and LeBron, I think it's actually remarkable the amount of chemistry they've developed in this short amount of time. I do still think the Timberwolves are raw for an upset in that series as we go back to Minnesota, the original home of the LA Lakers, by the way. So I still think the Timberwolves can win that series.
I do too.
I really do. I wouldn't be surprised. They had a lot of momentum to end the year. And that's another one where I could see them holding on to Game 6 at home and winning it.
I think that the Timberwolves can win the series in 4 games. I also think...
Well, it can't be 4 games. It's tied at 1.
Or 6 games, 4-2. I see them winning that series 4-2. But the other LA team, I could see winning that series against the Nuggets. I think if Kawhi Leonard is playing like he is, 15 of 19 from the field in his last game, as long as he's playing like that, they're going to be a hard team to stop in the playoffs in the Western Conference.
Well, really rapid fire. Who's your pick to come out of the East and the West? Just spitfire, go.
Okay, Celtics in the East, and I want to say Thunder in the West.
They've been dominant, Jack.
Yeah.
Give me the Cavaliers in the East. They got an easy path. I like that they're going to play the Pacers, who are going to be probably coming in off of a 5-game series, so they're just going to brush by them. Boston's going to get beat up by whoever wins the New York-Detroit series. And yes, I said Detroit in that too. Detroit has a good young team, and Tatum isn't fully healthy. So give me Cleveland in the East. And in the Western Conference, I have the Lakers storming back. I have them winning both games in Minnesota. I have them winning out in a 5-game series. I have them winning in the next round against the Warriors, mind you.
I have
defeating
the Warriors winning that series too.
Defeating the Thunder and winning an NBA championship over the Cleveland Cavaliers.
The Warriors?
No, the Lakers.
Oh, the Lakers.
Well, for me,
the Lakers
give me
and LeBron James are going to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell in the NBA Finals.
Somewhat of a hot take. I think I have to take that a lot of other people have, Teddy. I kind of am mostly in agreement with you. I think it's going to be the Celtics and the Thunder, but I do have the Thunder winning it all. I think that they've been dominant. I think that this momentum is reminiscent of what we saw out of the Warriors in 2015 when they broke out with that 67-win season. I see a lot of similarities with this Thunder team. I think they're too much going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, some people have compared. I know I have a Kobe comp to SGA. I like SGA. I compare him to Kobe. I think this is the year he proves me right.
I love SGA, so I actually like the comp. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I really like it. But one last thing. It's not a hot take. You told me rapid fire. I got reasons the Lakers are going to win, and we'll get into that on Q Sports Talk on Twitch.
All right, well, really quick, NHL playoffs. Jack, your take on the scene right now.
This is my time to shine.
You got some news for us, too, right?
I do got some news for you. Connor Geeky making his NHL playoffs debut. He got called back up from Syracuse, and he got to suit up for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then Matthew Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers crushed them 6-2. Tampa Bay will be out of this series. I think Florida's going to win in about 5 or 6. There's an off chance that Connor Geeky will be back for the Syracuse Crunch and their playoff hunt as they take on the Rochester Americans for the 3rd straight year. They won in 5 games last year. But really quick take on West and Eastern Conference brackets. I actually have, at this time, I have Washington coming out of the East. I think their path is the easiest. Montreal is a good team, not a great team. And I'm not a fan of Carolina. I'm not a fan of Toronto. And I'm not a fan of Florida. I just think they all have too many weaknesses, and Washington doesn't have any. I think Washington comes out of the East for that reason. Alex Ovechkin, he broke the Great Ones record this year, and now he's going to get his 2nd Stanley Cup. And I think he's going to do it. He's actually going to beat, and I don't think anybody's really picking them right now to win it or make it to the finals. I think Minnesota, the way they're playing, the way Matthew Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov, the back and forth, the skill, the size, the speed of those two guys dominating on the top line, I think that they're going to go on a run. They got some young, exciting players. They got Marc-Andre Fleury, his last dance, so to speak. But while I want him to win, I think it'll be Ovechkin over Fleury one last time.
What a year to win it for Washington, if that would be the case, the year Ovechkin breaks the record.
But that being said, as I said that, I got to be honest, I started thinking to myself, if Flower walks off of Minnesota, what an ending that would be to his career. So I hope that's what happens, but I have Ovechkin, the Caps, winning it.
There we go. After this short 4-minute break, we'll be back with Syracuse lacrosse. You are listening to Newhouse Afternoon on ESPN 97.7. Watch us on Twitch at qsportstalk.com.
All right, we should have more time, like 4 or 5 minutes to talk lacrosse, I think. So
thankfully, that's why I really was like tapping Jack, because I'm like, at least give us 3 to 4, better than 2.
I think I did an okay job.
You did.
With that.
You did hockey in like 2 minutes, which was fantastic.
And also, it would have gone faster if you hadn't called me out for a hot take on the Lakers. Look, the Lakers have the 2 best players in basketball. It's a star-driven sport. They're gonna win for that reason. Rui Hashimura or Austin Reeves, or whoever it is, I don't care if it's Bronny who's their 3rd player, one of those guys on any given night, and yes, I'm including the 11th man on their roster, a G Leaguer for all intents and purposes, they have enough in the tank to support those 2. Those are the most dynamic, that's the most dynamic duo I think I've ever seen in a regular season game. It's a joy to watch.
Now, I'm not saying that's a bad take, but I do think that the Thunder are just way more well-rounded of a team, defensively especially.
100%.
They got healthy. They got Chet Holmgren healthy, which is huge for them in this playoff run. They do have Hartenstein down low as well. And I just think they're much more well-rounded this year than they were last year. And they got a lot of the same guys back. They have experience. They're hungry. They're motivated. And, I mean, we were just talking Ovechkin possibly winning the Stanley Cup in a record year for him. This is a record year for SGA. He's probably going to win the MVP. And I think that will motivate him.
I think it's a lock. I think the odds have him at like minus 1,100.
Despite what a great season Jokic has had, it's still hard for me to wrap my head around how it's going to be SGA, to be honest. But
SGA's been spectacular,
I agree. It's just Jokic is the triple-double, everything he's doing statistically with the steals and the block.
Voter fatigue always comes into play, though.
That's what I'm saying, is that's the reason he's not getting it. That's the real reason.
And that's the real reason like Lamar didn't get it this season in football. So.
Yeah, I mean, he was better than Josh Allen on paper.
Are you talking about voter fatigue?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just, thinking the same thing.
Also, if you haven't noticed, I'm kind of a sucker for a storyline. I think LeBron and the Lakers beating the Cleveland Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell in the NBA Finals, first off, I think it would be TV gold. I got to be honest about that. But secondly, I really believe that the Cavs can beat Boston. And I really believe that the Lakers can make it out of this Western Conference where anybody can beat anybody. But at the end of the day, I'm always going to bet on the game's biggest stars to win. And when you have arguably the 2 best players in the NBA, despite age, I'm going to say LeBron James on any given night can be one of, if not the best player in the NBA.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's proven that throughout his career.
I think they win at least one championship together.
Him and Luka?
I think this year that Nico Harrison's going to come up clutch with the assist. Luka's got a little extra fire in his belly. And I got the Lakers.
That's why you pulled the trigger on that trade, because you're trying to win now before LeBron retires. One other thing I will say about the Knicks, though, is Jalen Brunson has not been shooting the ball that well in the series. I mean, he's 12 for 27 in both of those Knicks performances. He's been playing 40-plus minutes in both of these games, too. Like I mean, he scored 37 and 34 in those games.
It's also about the foul shooting, too, which has been good.
Yeah, he's been getting to the line, which is what you want. But I'm just saying, like, it's just you're relying a lot on Jalen Brunson. Other guys are scoring, but you're just going to burn that team out. Like, man, I don't know. Like, Precious Achiuwa not seeing the court, in my opinion, is a travesty.
I agree. Precious does a lot of those little things well that you need in the playoffs. And I have a comparison for you on this, actually. In hockey, they invented the line change in a double overtime game between Harvard and Yale. This is going back to, like, early 1900s, right? They put this full second line out, second pair D out in the second overtime. They immediately score because the other team's first line was tired. Before that, all they did was substitutions. Now, I'm not saying that basketball is heading that direction. I think it's very clear it's not. But you got to be willing to rest guys, otherwise they get hurt. Like relievers now play more because starters play less in the MLB. NBA stars are going to have to play less.
Yeah, I mean, you got a team like Boston who's just so deep. Like they could
Peyton
play
Pritchard.
Dude, they play like
Sixth man of the year.
They play at least 10 guys, if not 12. Like they can if they want, at least. So
10 seconds did.
Yeah.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
Welcome back to Newhouse Afternoon on ESPN 97.7 and on QSportsTalk.com. We're talking about lacrosse coming into their season finale here at the Dome against number 8 North Carolina on Saturday. Back-to-back losses for this men's team, kind of stymieing the momentum they had.
Well, look, 7 goals in a game for the Orange. That ties the lowest under Gary Gate through 4 years. And it's not the first time it's happened this year either, but the reality is that the Orange didn't score until the second quarter, about just under a minute, and they were down 4-0. And they lose this game because their offense couldn't get going. They only get 20 shots on net to Duke's 26. McCool makes 15 saves. Another strong showing for him, but guess what? Duke goaltender Patrick Jamieson stops 13 of 20. That's 65%. That should not happen in lacrosse. It just shouldn't. You know, and now they're going into a game where their tournament fate. Now, I don't think there's a world in which they don't make it because all their losses have come against really good teams. But their tournament fate and who they match up against could be decided by the committee if they don't beat the North Carolina Tar Heels this Saturday.
Yeah, having 3 straight losses going into the ACC tournament is a bad look for Syracuse. I will say both Duke and Cornell did a great job with ground balls and just being aggressive. Syracuse fell behind early in both of those games, like you said, Jack. Syracuse didn't even score in the first and third quarter in that game against Duke, and they were only down 2-1 against Cornell and then found themselves down 8-2. So falling behind big to these teams, they have to scrape their way back in, and to some effect they did. Against Duke, they cut it to 1 in the second, but then Duke pulled away again, getting up by 5 in the third, and that's just no way. Like, Syracuse plays better from ahead. They got to get ahead early. They have the capability to get ahead early, but they got to do it.
They were riding high after that Notre Dame win, and they did all the little things right to win that game. Even after going down, they just played fundamentally sound lacrosse, and it seems like they've gotten away from that. I'd like to see them find it before the tournament. I'd like to see them beat UNC, because if they beat UNC, I still believe this is a team that not only can, but probably should win a national championship this year.
I definitely don't see them losing against North Carolina at home in the regular season finale. What do you think about Syracuse, these 2 games, and going forward?
I think that it's so important to reestablish this momentum going into the ACC tournament. I mean, this was a team that was number 2 in the country projected coming into the season. I still think that talent can come together come playoff time. And so for the final time this year, guys, it's Cedric Derecho, Teddy Caputo, Jack Ziskin. Thank you so much for listening on Newhouse Afternoon. We are signing off for the year for now. The Sports Show with Cody Mack is next.
This is Orange Nation.